Let's talk business, shall we? Begin, of course, with oil markets. You just heard us talking about, Woodruff and what's going on with the ceasefire. Oil still remains below $80 a barrel. Brent crude at 76.04. West Texas Intermediate, that is your North American grade, 71.81. West Texas Intermediate could fall below $70. I haven't seen that in a while. Natural gas is down. We have to see what happens, of course, with the geopolitical concerns, but there's also the demand supply side, the fundamentals for oil. We'll go to Asian markets. While I was updating the Asian markets, they were actually half of them were bearish, but then they now script back into the positive side with, I believe, Japan leading. No, actually, it was the Hang Seng leading the way at the time. But then I think since then, the Shanghai Composite Index actually slipped back into the negative region. But at the time, as a 5:41 GMT, we had all the Asian markets in positive territory. And one of the reasons why, let's get to the business activity survey from Japan. We actually have business activity survey from Japan, and actually for the first time in a while, Nigeria. I'll get to Nigeria in a second, but fastest pace of business activity rising since May of last year. Your composite outputs index is, this is like your purchasing managers index. If you're above 50, you're expanding. If you're below 50, you're contracting. So you can see the flash numbers for Japan, basically surveying businesses in Japan and asking them, how is your inventory? How is your employment? This and that, that and this. So basically positive territory you can see the flash numbers for services, for manufacturing, up in August as opposed to July. Let's get to the U.S. Now. The Bureau of Labor Statistics has revised downwards the amount of jobs that were created between April of last year and March, I believe, of this year. So U.S. job growth was actually weaker. And what it is that they have a small period of time to put out non-farm payrolls and so on. What they do is they go back and look at tax information for each state, and then they revise the numbers. So the period from April 23 to March 2024, it was revised down by 818,000 jobs. That is in total. The markets were expecting a revision of 1 million. This was on the calendar. It is done every single year. It is the biggest revision we've seen since 2009. That was 824,000. I remember what things were like in 2009. I was still in the States working at the time. There was a recession that was on the cards, but that's a different case here. So basically, average job growth between April of 2023 to March 2024 has now been revised downwards in the United States to 174,000. The prior average was 242,000. The markets ignored it. If you take a look at the U.S. markets for Wednesday, they shrugged it off. Dow Jones was still up S&P 500 was up. The NASDAQ was up. The Russell 2000 had the biggest jump, and that's a small caps index that tracks small cap stocks. So the markets ignored it because they're looking forward to Jackson Hole tomorrow and hearing from Jerome Powell, because the FOMC minutes, the Federal Open Market Committee minutes, were released, and they have pointed to a rate cut in September. So the market shrugged it off. So now, I've explained this, right? This thing was on the calendar. It is a revision that is known. I've given you the facts. Listen to former U.S. President Donald Trump. Adefemi just talked about him in North Carolina. Listen specifically to what he said about what I have literally just explained to everyone. Listen.
Before we begin, I want to address the massive scandal around the revised job numbers that were just announced this morning. A little while ago, just before I came up, I got to see them. And it really isn't a revision. It's a total lie. Total lie. There's never been any revision like this. They wanted it to come out after the election, but somehow it got leaked. It got leaked. Government leaks too. The Harris-Biden administration has been caught fraudulently manipulating job statistics to hide the true extent of the economic ruin that they've inflicted on America. The new data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that the administration padded the numbers with an extra, listen to this one, 818,000 jobs that don't exist. So they said they existed, and they never did exist. They built them up so that they could say what a wonderful job they're doing. No, we've never had numbers like this. They don't exist. They thought they could do it sometime after. We have an election coming up very quickly, but they wanted this to come out after November 5th, when it wouldn't have meant so much, but it came out a little early, so there's a patriot in there someplace, right? The real numbers are much worse than that.
Right. So if I hadn't taken the time to explain that this was a standard thing that comes out, it wasn't leaked, it wasn't, there was no patriot inside. This needs to be said, right? We talk about how people say one needs to be neutral. Donald Trump is a pathological liar, right? And another thing that needs to be said, Trump, a sizable number of Trump's base, not everyone, but a sizable number of the people that this gentleman speaks to are, number one, poorly educated people. I mean, he seriously said that I love the poorly educated. You can check the numbers. And when you look at the 2016 votes and 2020, most people that he carried in the category of people without a college degree, people without the equivalent of a secondary school certificate, he carried them in droves. They are also low information voters. So that is, they do not take the time to watch the news, like watch Arise News or the CNNs and Sky News. They also don't read a lot. So when they take this kind of information, they swallow it whole. They're also intellectually lazy. And many of them haven't heard of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And even if they look up that data, they can't even interpret what it means. But it's much easier to say scandal, deep states, conspiracy, cover up, and so on and so forth. As we've demonstrated here, if I had not even put out that data and explained it, many people would watch what Trump said and believe that Kamala Harris and the Democrats were padding jobs numbers. Meanwhile, this is a standard practice of statistical revision that is done by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Let's move to Nigeria and the jobs. This is something that the Central Bank of Nigeria has said was going to come out. They put out a notice saying they will now start releasing more economic data for Nigerians. So now, just like Japan, I showed you what happened in Japan. This is the Business Expectations Survey. It's very interesting. You see the lowest numbers coming from the current month. So if they looked at manufacturing, they looked at banking and finance, and so on and so forth. You can see it's 0.1. That is the lowest. So businesses that responded to the survey from the CBN were at their most pessimistic in the current month of July. But you can see that what they feel like business conditions will look like at the next month in August as at a 7.6. It's higher. At the next 3 months, it's a 19.3, and the next 6 months is 30.7. So this is a trend that I suspect where you see things are tough in the current month, but businesses are more optimistic about the future. And then finally, Treasury bills. The Treasury bill auction yesterday, I've told people, invest. A higher subscription for the 364-day, but if you look at the true yield, even though rates came down a little bit, 19%, 21.25, 26.4, invest. Right? The Treasury bill numbers are looking pretty good. That's all we have for business.
Rotus, what do you expect Trump to say? That's who he is.
Right.
So you see, when people go with the bandwagon of, be objective, be neutral, be this, be that, because when it comes to Trump, this is a man himself that you struggle to defend him because he always tells the lies, a lot of the malarkeys. He always tries to skew the narrative, and he feeds into a base. Another base he feeds into are the evangelical Christians. Yep. Because probably, yes, they hate abortion. Yeah, I mean, I don't totally support a lot of choice to abortion myself, but I don't also support lies. So because he has reversed Roe versus Wade, they feel it's their Messiah. But tell this guy to quote the Bible, he doesn't read the Bible.
He was asked that question. He said he didn't read it much.
This is the same man that does all the crazy things in the book, that manipulates people and all of that. His Trump University was a fraud.
Scam.
Everything about him is a scam itself. Even in fact, being a billionaire, probably you can have to question that. So when you look at all of this, I know that there are religious leanings, that's why people support him. But we are talking about objectivity and facts here. Somebody sent me a paper this morning, and I was talking about Trump and said, you know what, he lost more money being in power. And I looked at it. The other American president that you said that made money out of power, they made money from speaking engagements. So his business was already battered. He had filed for bankruptcy. So you see, it's he who...
I think beyond religious leanings, people have the right. People choose Trump because of the fact that they actually align with his views. Agree with it or not, some people think like that. So, for instance, at the convention, at the rally in North Carolina, when he asked people that should he stick to attacking the person or policies, many of them shouted persons. So the people that are voting for him look like him. So it's not only about religious leanings. I believe some people actually think like that, and that's something I must accept. Some people think the way that Trump thinks, and he's only speaking on behalf of people. What people are thinking and are afraid to say, he's speaking like that. So I think that's also important to establish. Some people agree with it.